This happened to me when I was around 10 years old. I never really told anybody apart from my best friends. I grew up in Scotland on a farm with my dad. After I turned 6, my dad started to develop arthritis in old age. He couldn't look after the animals, so I had to help out until we could sell them, feeding them ECT. I was a bit of a tomboy in some ways. I didn't mind bugs, mud, and the dark. I didn't get scared easily. I was the kid trying to scare people most of the time for fun. One day, my dad left me in charge of our land while he went to get his back checked since it had been getting worse. You're probably thinking he didn't care about me or anything, so before you judge, he has, and always will care about me. He said that I should stay inside and draw, do something creative. I was brought up speaking English. I never really understood why, still don't to be honest, so I couldn't really talk to any of the adults. Some of my friends spoke English. I just pretended to know what they meant if they did speak Scottish. Since I had an accent, people believed me. I just sat inside all day and drew pictures and did puzzles. It started raining and thundering. I jumped out of my skin every time I heard thunder. A while after the rain started, I heard a cow wandering around. We had 5 cows, 10 pigs, and 3 sheep. I put on my raincoat and looked outside for her. The gate and the doors to the shed where they slept had blown open. I eventually tempted her back to the shed and calmed down the rest of the cows. There was one cow that was a bit smaller than the rest. She didn't have a name since she was so young. Only born a few days ago, she normally stayed with the rest of the cows and stayed warm. I could see her huddled up in the corner, so I went to see if she was okay. The rest of the cows didn't even notice about her for some reason, so it was safer than normal to do so. When I was close enough to get a good look at her, I could tell something was wrong. Normally, she would jump and run up to me and lick my hand like a pet cat or something. She just stayed still, huddled up and shivering. When I was sitting next to her, I put my hand on the back of her neck and patted her to reassure her that she was okay and that the thunder couldn't hurt her. She bent her neck around and looked at me. She didn't blink and her eyes didn't move. She just stared at me. She jumped up, pushed me out the way, and ran out of the open door. The gate was locked, so I thought she would run back inside when she realized it was raining. I ran after her but couldn't see her. I walked around the sides of the fence to see if there was a way she could get out. I was about to give up when I heard a rustle in the bushes on the other side of the fence. Spot? I nicknamed her that because she was just plain white with one black spot around her left eye. "You there, girl?" I asked. I leant over the wooden post and looked around with the torch. After a while, a small head poked out from over the bush and looked at me. It was so dark I couldn't see, so I pointed the torch at it. It was still dark. It wasn't Spot. I didn't know what it was. It looked like a black ball with black hair stuck on the top. "Hello?" I asked it rather quietly. The thing in the bushes shook and jumped out. It had 2 skinny and bone-like legs, about a foot in height, no arms or face at all. I stared at it and tried to figure out what it was. It growled at me and started to run towards me. I didn't realize how far away it was because of the rain. It was nearly as big as I was. I ran home, slammed the door, and just sat on the sofa crying. My dad got home and I went to bed. I didn't tell him about what had happened with the animals or what happened by the fence because he didn't need any more stress. I woke up, washed, got dressed, and walked downstairs. My dad walked in through the front door with a sad look on his face. He had rain dripping off of his hair and his shoulders. "What's wrong, Dad?" I asked, plodding over to hug him. "Aye, it's nothing. Just go back to your breakfast." "I'll tell you later, Rose," he said, nudging me over to the table. After breakfast, my dad went up to have a nap, and I went out to put some food in the troughs for the cows. The gate was unlocked but not open. I ignored it and carried on. I had my torch in my pocket so that if that thing showed up again, I could whack it with it, then run off screaming like bloody murder. I pushed open the huge doors and dragged the food bucket behind me. At first, it sounded like a cat trying to meow and eat at the same time. Then it started to sound like snarling. I looked around, and I could see the black ball of fur hunched over in the corner. I could see one of the bigger cows underneath it covered in blood. It didn't know I was there until I screamed, dropped the food, and ran. It snarled and chased after me. I got to the gate and I couldn't hear the footsteps anymore. I turned around and swung my torch around in self-defense. I sighed and wiped the tears off my face. I turned around, and it was there, its face, nearly touching mine. It was breathing heavily and staring, I think, at me. Its hair was soaked in blood, and so was what was meant to be its face. I screamed and ran to the door of our cottage. "Dad! Dad!" I shouted over and over again until he woke up. I heard the footsteps getting louder and louder as it ran up the gravel path. My dad opened the door and the footsteps stopped. I looked up at him and burst into tears. He picked me up and hugged me. He put me back down on my feet and patted me on the head. "What's wrong, Princess?" he asked me in a reassuring voice. I told him what happened, and he told me that he was sad because one of the older cows died of old age. He called some people, and they would have picked up the body without me knowing since it would upset me. I looked in some books and couldn't find any animal that looked even similar to what I saw. I was wondering if anybody else has experienced anything like this and if they found an explanation for it.